So today, let's start with our bootcamp. Let's kick it off. So my name is Chris. It's the easiest way to call me because in Polish it's a little bit more difficult. So Chris is fine. Here is a QR code that you can scan. And you will see a lot of my social media profiles. You can add me on LinkedIn. We will have a Q&A session at the end. And if we will not have enough time or you're not keen to ask on online call in front of plenty of people question, you can always reach out to me directly and I will be happy to answer all of your questions. I'm a Power Apps consultant at G-Team and Microsoft MVP. I also encourage you to visit my blog. It's new, it's fresh, it's not too much content over there, but I will be starting to provide more content over there. So feel free to join me in the path of learning and educating. Okay, let me just switch notifications because I can see them on my main screen. Okay. So today we will talk about named formulas, how we can utilize them to maximize efficiency in Canvas apps. So we'll go through quick introduction, then we'll cover what's going on the application on start. So we'll start from the scratch when users open the application, and let's go further through the whole business process journey with our users. So we'll go through app on starts. We're gonna compare similarities, differences of variables and named formulas, so you know when to use what to increase that efficiency. Then we'll go to anatomy of named formulas. We'll go to reusable code of user-defined function, and at the end, I'll have for you great key takeaways. So let's start with that introduction. Okay, so what are formulas? Formulas are like variables, right? But a little bit different. So what's the magic here? The magic is that named formulas, they are simplifying initialization. They are reducing the load times. We can reuse a lot of logic and improve the maintainability. So we will go today through all of that points, exactly explaining why. It's simplifying, it's reducing, reusing, and improving everything in our application. So what is the easiest way to start then? The easiest way to start is to go to the place where everything is happening. So when you open your Canvas apps, click on the application icon and the tree view on the top, and then navigate to formulas via drop down on the top. On the right side, you will have a PowerFX placement to write all of your formulas. And I mean all, because in this place, you will provide every code for your named formulas. This is a centralized place of a definition for our named formulas. So all the code you will write for named formulas, it's an app.formulas property. So it's a single place across all applications. So you already see advantage of improving readability of our application. And the formula definition is immutable. So if you will provide your formula in that app.formulas pairs, it is a single source of truth. You cannot change the value anywhere in the application. You cannot append the value. You cannot force the change. It is being over there, and whenever it is needed, it will be available for us. So you have this single place of definition, single source of truth. And this is really important with your named formulas. This is big advantage because it's make our maintenance easier. If you will have a change request from your customer, if you will have a support request, you will have to change something, and you will know that you are working with the named formula. Then you can navigate to a single place, find it, change it, adjust it, and it's working all across the application. So comparing to variables, it's much easier because you don't have to look all across the application. Where is it initialized? Where is being called to be alive? So if we'll go through the introduction, let's go from scratch whenever we open our application. So application on start is available to us when you select app property and from the drop down set on start. So app on start property is a place in which code is executed always when applications start, and this code is always executed first. So you have to have in mind that whatever you will provide over there will be executed first. So is it good? I don't think so. I don't think so. Let's talk why not, actually. Because if you put a lot of code over there, if you will start initializing variables, a lot of variables, prefetching the data from the data sources, chasing the data, right? Providing a lot of logic over there, your application will be really, really slow to open. And that's bad. So all of those 3 points that you can currently see on the screen, they are from Microsoft documentation and from a community leaders investigation. What most of the users across all over the world are doing with OnStart property. So do you think it's good? Nope. We shouldn't initialize the first screen on app OnStart. We should not initialize global variables, or if even not many. Prefetching the data, that's not the best idea. So all of those are wrong. That's why it's stated do not take pictures. It just false information I want you not to follow, because for setting up the first screen, you can use start screen property. For our global variables, you can use named formulas. And for fetching and prefetching the data, you can use custom loading screen. But that's not all. Whatever you don't want to do in named formulas or should not be done over there, because we also have scenarios that we will talk what you should not do over there, you can use to set up global variables also on a custom loading screen. So your application opens really, really quickly, goes to the loading screen, and then prefetch the data, check permissions, check user profile. What do they want? Are they opening the application with some metadata to navigate to screen A or screen B? So we can use a custom loading screen, a lot of logic put over there. So why this OnStart is not great? And what is the comparison with named formulas? So the formula value is always available. So there is no timing dependency. And OnStart, if you put global variables, those variables have to come alive one after another, right? So no application OnStart must run to get that value definition, to get that formula value to be alive. So there is no time also that the formula is incorrect. It's just independent. So our users do not wait for the application to open, which simplifies the whole experience, right? Even though Microsoft its own says it's not the best idea to use application OnStart property. Even they say in the application settings that you can turn it off, and there is a better way to accomplish the same thing. For example, setting up the first screen, which is app.startScreen property. Be careful with app OnStart property. It doesn't allow you to use global variables. That's because the first screen has to be initialized first, and if you provide any variable over there, it has to be called to life, which is not possible due to PowerApps architecture. Okay, if we know the fundamentals, so we gone from introduction, we went through application OnStart, what people do, what they should not do. Let's compare our named formulas to variables. So in variables, we have 3 types of regular variables. We are not talking about tables, collections, but regular variables. We have local, global, and temporary. So all of those 3 have a different usage. Global is available all across the application. Local is available on one screen only, unless we will provide that value with navigate to a different screen function. And with function, which is one time, a temporary variable. So what do you think? What is the most similar variable to a named formula? What named formula is the closest to? The proper answer is global variable. So named formula is always is also available all across the application. This is the main similarity. But what are the differences over there? So let's go through a code perspective for a second. If we will set a value of a global variable, we have to write it somewhere in the code. We have to click a button or open a screen so it's being called. So we have to declare it and initialize it, call it to life. So global variables are available all across the application, but they are also always stored within our application memory. If we will do a lot of variables, global variables, they be always stored in our memory when they will be called to life. Even if you set the value to blank, it will be saved as this value does not have this variable does not have a value. It still be there, so it's really, really dangerous for us. And you can update it in any place of the application. So you can set it on screen A and then change the value on screen B, or even update on the same screen. So if you do not keep the same data over there, it can cause a lot of impact across the whole application, a lot of issues. So let's compare it now to a named formula. It is also available all across application, but you declare it in this one centralized point of definition. It is available when needed, so no onSelect has to go on, no screen has to open first, but you cannot update it anywhere. Its value, it's immutable. Okay, so I think the next one should be the code execution order to get also the similarities and differences, and mainly the differences and advantages on named formula. So what is the standard execution code order in Canvas apps? It is sequential load, right? So you get one data set. When it's done, you get second, you get third action, one after another. It's like going down the stairs, one step after another. Of course, you are right, there is something called concurrent function. So you can call this logic in asynchronous way. It's split it to threads, so you can call all of those pretty much at the same time, but we could not influence what is being executed first, what is second, right? So here you got the code approach, how it looks from the code perspective. On the left, you have out of the box. You set up your variable, and then you get your data, for example, right? So this is one after another. And at the concurrent approach, asynchronous, you have, I like to call it a threads. So you are setting your variable and you're getting your data pretty much at the same time, but you don't know which thread is being executed first. But the time of execution is much faster. If we will compare that to named formulas, what you will realize is that during using a concurrent function does not allow to work on the same data sources, on working on the same variables, right? Working on the same data, basically, because it does not know what should be first. It's not one after another. So it can start getting the value of something that is that requires a different value from a different variable. Let's look from the code perspective. Out of the box, we can set a variable called user with users logged user metadata, and then use it to get a manager of that user. If we would use concurrent, which of course will be quicker and faster for our users, we will not be able to do so because the code cannot say that we'll execute it in the proper order. So global manager might be called to life quicker than a user variable that is needed to call for a manager. That's a big issue and something worth considering while working with a concurrent, that you cannot work on the same data sources or variables. If we will go to the regular approach, sequential load, you can set the global definition of a manager above a user data definition, but it will still not work because the global user data in our example visible on the screen will be empty. So we will call a connector to get the manager, but with the empty string, blank string, nothing over there. So still out of the box, we need to keep proper order of variable initialization. In the sequential load, it's also really, really crucial to go from the top to the bottom of our needs of data. So now, what is the comparison of that to named formulas? I'm here to tell you because it's great, because formulas can reference each other in non-ordered approach. The only thing is we cannot create circular reference, okay? So you can define a user named formula after you define a manager named formula, which will be utilizing a user value to make that query, right? So look here, they are in different order, but formulas are smart because what they will do, oh, I need to get the manager data. This is the definition of it. Oh, I do need a user named formula of user with a male column value. Do I have it? If that value is blank, the named formula will know to go to the user named formula and make it to put it alive, to put the data over there, call the functions that are over there. So if it's lacking the data and it's dependent on the named formula, it will automatically get that data. It's really, really powerful because you don't have to care. It's still worth it's still worth to go with the proper approach, don't get me wrong, but it's ease up our life because we are putting things in one place. It can be in a messed up order and you can find it really quickly and it can reference to each other. That's really, really powerful because it's also available across the whole application. So let's skip everything and go to comparison, the final comparison of named formulas and variables. Let's start with global variables. So you as a citizen developer, as a pro developer, as a consultant, you need to set a definition of our global variable. You have to declare it. Find a place where you will call it alive. So you need to find an action, a user action that opens a screen, goes out of a screen, clicks a button, right? So then the global variable comes to life. It needs to be initialized. And after that initialization, it is stored in our memory always, right? So it is available always in our application and you can update it. You can update it in a different places of application to get new value. You can refresh it whenever you want it. You can append it whenever you want it, but still be careful with it. It can cause some issues if you will provide a different data in the same variable. But this is how global variables look like. And comparison to named formulas, we have a one place of definition. I will tell it plenty of times during this session so you will remember properly. Single place of definition, single source of truth. You don't have to think where it comes to life on any action because it's just comes to existence whenever it's needed. So if you'll put it into a drop down, and you will start open a screen with the drop down, it will get that data over there. It's not stored in the memory all the time, only whenever it's needed, and it's always up to date, but cannot be updated by a user or an actions. Okay. Here you got a little summary of named formulas, so they can refer to each other in different order. As long as they do not create those circle reference, they are always up to date. A definition is immutable. It's a single source of truth for initialization place, and the calculation cannot be deferred. So this is what we are dealing with, a really, really powerful functionality. So let's go to the anatomy, to the definition. How to define a named formula. We went from the higher picture, now we're getting to the details, to the meat. Okay, let's start with the prefix. You and your team has to know that you are working with named formula. So looking from the community, looking through some documentation, looking for good practices, I would recommend to go with NF something. You don't have to use that space, but it's from named formula. So you have to use a proper prefix, like for global variables and local variables, so you can call the difference. If you will know that you are working with a named formula based on the prefix, you would know that any changes can be done in the centralized place at app.formulas. So it's a direct indication that you and your team are working with named formulas. It's really easy to remember, and that approach is commonly used with among the community. If you have a company guidelines, company templates, you can use whatever your team is using, as long as you and your colleagues, your friends, your support team, you know it is a named formula. Okay, then you provide a proper naming convention. So NF user will get us the named formula of user metadata. And then the named formula always equals. Okay, if you go to local variables, they have this double dots. How do you call it? Not a semicolon, but you know the feeling. And then you get the semicolon for global variables, right? So the named formula always equals a logic. Okay, and then at the end of each formula, after the logic, you have to provide a semicolon. This is really, really crucial, because this is not a regular behavior in Power Apps. So NF name of the formula equals logic semicolon at the end. Always semicolon, because as it's not a typical, but we have to deal with the architecture and how it was created. So if you will look at the previous examples that I was already showing to you, you might not realize it, but each and every one, even the last one, is ending with the semicolon. If you will not use that semicolon at the last item, you will have error and none of your formulas will work. Right? So you always have to put that semicolon at the end. This is how it works, and we have to deal with it, learn it, and then we'll be cool with it. Okay, now let's go to the data types. Actually, named formulas can work with all the data types. Boolean strings, integers, tables, objects. So here I've got an example for you. I've got few Boolean approaches. Boolean true, false. I've got number, static number, float, right? Date time values, date time, some PowerFX works inside. We can create a regular table with a column called value. We can provide a little bit complex with a status, column called status, right? We can then use it in a different places of applications. So let's go for the example. I initialized those items at the same screens. Here on the left side, we have date, date time, and just time. And here we get the number and the float. So can you spot a small difference here? It is really crucial. Look at the code again. So we got date time value of now, and then we have time value of now, and then the whole definition of just date and time. Look, I've created a named formula at the same time, and then added to a screen to the code 1 minute later. So I've added a new label 1 minute later. So one of the formulas is set to current date and time, and it's showing us that I've created this typical approach at October 23rd, 2024 at 3 p.m. 59 minutes. But 1 minute later, I called to alive a second formula. So you see the big difference here? It is always up to date when you need this, and you cannot influence the change. So if we will get the time when we open the screen, it will not change automatically every minute. It will be this particular time on the time when you need this. So this example with time is perfect to understand the complexity of named formulas and a disadvantage of how we should work with them, how we should understand it. Now let's go to another part. something like a collection. Let's call it as hard-coded collection inside our application table, like with columns called community name and a city. In Poland, we have 4 main communities, and we will not go through them, but they are in the different part of the country. So I've created screen in Power Apps that I've provided named formula inside a combo box. So as you can see, I was in place to use a name of a community and a city of a community from this named formula, aka collection, right? You can use it wherever and however you want it into the application. Even more, I've added a picture to our Canvas apps and created a column that was referring to a picture that was added inside a inside application, right? So I've created a gallery where I've added our named formula as a data source and said, I want this picture to be on top. And I want this to be like a navigation menu. And it was based on 1 hour monthly community meetings in Poland. So as you can see, you can create really cool UI, really cool design of your application in Canvas apps with really small effort with named formulas. Okay, now complex scenario, creating a table it's not that complex. What about Power FX? How we can use the coding language inside Canvas apps for our advantage? The answer is we can do pretty much what we want over there. Most of the things will work. So here I've created a responsive font named formula that is working with temporary variable, checking the currently open application screen size. So I can tell am I working on mobile device, tablet, vertical, horizontal, or a laptop. So as the output, we will just have a text value, right? So let's go here. I've opened this application on a tablet, and it showed me, based on my named formula, the value 3. And on my mobile device, it was value 1. So as you can see, we can reuse the named formula logic to analyze even responsiveness design. We can create like a responsive fonts, for example, responsive header sizes. So it's perfect and it's great. Let's go to the object type. No issue there. We already went through this example, right? You can create an object, just call it a name, put this fancy bracket, and provide the columns names with the definition over there. And you can also use Power FX. You can use switch, you can use with, you can work with plenty of things. Okay, now, what is the similarities and differences within the collections and named formulas? So first of all, collections can be updated. You can influence that update. So you can create, based on the session I had with you last year about the sidebar navigation, it's used the same approach. So you can create a collection that you can update. You can use patch, you can do update if, remove if, you can do some error handling, but you have to call it alive. So if something is to be changed in the application later, it is really good to use collections. If that value should be most likely static, you can use named formulas. And it will be called to life whenever you need it. So if you don't use your navigation, it's hidden. It doesn't have to be called. Okay, now if we went through introduction, we went to the comparison, what we are doing, and the similarities and differences of standard variables and collections, and went through all the types, most of the types that we can work with on named formulas, the whole anatomy. Let's go to reusable functions. They are called user-defined functions. So how to start? It's really, really simple. You know me, so you know where to start. This time at the settings. We always, when we work with something, we have to check if this is in general availability. So it's safe to use in the production environment, or is it in testing phase, not available to everyone, or not for fully safe to use on the production. So you have to check if this is available to you. If not, check the settings. I like to use user-defined functions, and I'll tell you why. I personally use them on a production application, but that's my choice. I do not encourage you to use something that is not generally available in your application. So let's turn it on and go to the details where UDFs are available. Whoop, the same place as the formulas. So that's even better because we still have centralized place of definition, single source of truth. Okay? Still, we have single source of truth to put all our variables, objects, collections, definitions, and reusable functions. So it's perfect. Please still remember about the semicolon at the end and will be great. So let's go to the anatomy. Where to start? Let's start with the prefix. Me personally, I like to use UDF because it's from the name, user defined function underscore. But there are people in the community that calls those functions, and they use func prefix, F-U-N-C, and that's perfectly fine. I totally understand why, because from the classical programming approach, it is just called a function. Here it's called a user-defined function. So it's up to you how you will call it, as long as your team knows that they will be working with named formula, a user-defined function over there. It's the same with the named formula. Stick to your guidelines, establish that with your team, and be happy knowing that this is named formula or user-defined function. So what is the syntax? UDF underscore function name to identify it properly, then you provide parameters, so the input data to our function, and you have to define a data type of each input. Then when you close your inputs with a column, then you do definition of the output data. So what will be the data type going outside of a function, and then it equals our logic. It equals our formula. So let's go to the classic approach everyone will show you on the tutorials online, on Microsoft documentation, multiple numbers. So let's take the number 1, number 2, the output should be a number, equals a logic, multiply 1 with 2. That's so easy. So let's go to the details. Let's deep dive. Let's go through our own approach. Look here. Let's go with the data types. You have various data types. You can provide booleans, numbers, date time, GUIDs, hyperlinks, untyped objects, void, color. That's perfect. I've seen some really cool stuff done by the community, like creating a color definition, gradient colors, changing the font color based on the background color, just based on the user-defined functions. That's powerful, and kudos for that. To understand on a more complex example, I've created something that I use for work. So personally, on my project, I have a lot of date and times. I need to calculate a date-time difference between start and end in plenty of places of our applications. So I could create this code to calculate duration in each place in the application I need it. That's not the best idea. I would create one code, copy and paste here, copy, paste here, copy, paste there. It's not that reusable. So what are the options I can use? Can I use a component? Can I use something different to get that duration being more efficient, being acceptable for changes? Here comes user-defined function. Defined once, can be used all over the application. One change changes everywhere the way it works. So I hope that you know that working with date and times in Power Platform can be a little bit tricky, and it's called with love, because usually I would say it's pain. It's a pain. So what about the duration in Canvas apps? Do you think it can be calculated easily? Not really. No, because the dative is working based on days, hours, and minutes. So if you will provide a dative hours, even you have 2 minutes difference, it will tell you it's 1 hour, because from 5 to 6 p.m. is 1 hour, but from 5:55 to 6:05, it's only like 10 minutes. It doesn't matter. It's 1 hour duration. That's not good, right? The same with days. You can have 10 minutes between 31st of December and 1st of January. It's still one day. In calendar, it would be a year. So that's useless. To calculate a proper duration, you have to use minutes, if you are not taking care about seconds, of course. So if you are taking minutes, then you have to create a logic to calculate, is it below an hour, more than an hour, but less than a day, more than a day, more than a month, etc., etc. So I've created this reusable code, and I've used it as a user-defined function. I use it all over my application, and it worked properly. So what are the advantages of it? The advantages are as follows. I can use PowerFX possibilities, all the code, all the functionalities of PowerFX. You can try put to user-defined function and check if those work. I'm using WIF, I'm using switch, plenty of different functions are available. So big advantage. The whole way of coding is to us available. We just have to reach out to it and code our function. So it's great until it's not data manipulation. You cannot use patch. You cannot throw the data with this reusable function to the data source, create new item or update an item. At least at the time I was creating that session, it's not possible. So if you look carefully on this slide, what do you see? We've got the name, we got date input, we got date input, start time, end time. As the output we are using, we want a text. So we want to have like 1 day, 3 hours, 45 minutes. We're using a temporary variable to define a difference in minutes, how many minutes we have in hour, how many minutes we have in days, and then we're going to a switch. So what we are saying is, hey, is the start time and the end time proper? So if you would look from the timeline perspective, start time is always before an end. If something starts, it has to end later on the timeline of X axis. So here I've created the error handling approach. The start time is greater than the end time. We've got logic issue. So I've implemented error handling, and this is something that I encourage you to do. Look, input data for user-defined functions matches ideal scenarios for us as developers, consultants, citizen developers, makers. It is ideal scenario for us, but our users, they are going beyond the process, click here, click there. So we have to be sure that our applications are safe, our actions are well thought through with the error handling approach to create a seamless user experience. So I recommend to check if the data input isn't blank. Is that data proper, like this date and time? So watch out, take care of the errors. And even though we love our end users, sometimes we have to limit how we trust they will use the application and make it bulletproof. This is our responsibility. Okay, so this is pretty much the same what I've said, but I want to repeat it. The input data from the user does not have to match ideal scenario for which we develop the application. Make sure it is safe. Okay, now time for the key takeaways because we're getting to the end of the session. So, named formulas. The value is always available to us. There is no timing dependency. It's needed, it's there. So no application on start has to run first, right? No on select action for on a button. No screen has to open. No navigation to a different screen have to happen. It's just available always when we need this. They can refer to each other, right? As long as you don't create a circular reference. So that's perfect because you can do things quicker. The formula is always up to date. So this is also really, really good. If you know the limitations, we were talking during the session. You cannot update the formula inside the application. You can just need it again to update it. So it updates its value, right? And the calculation cannot be deferred because the value is immutable. Okay, but here I have the most important key takeaways for you, the benefits. Improved readability. So you know that there is a centralized point of definition, a single source of truth, one thing, one place, right? You can create complex scenarios over there, named formulas, user-defined functions. Whenever you go inside your application and you see NF or UDF or func, then you know where to go to provide any changes. It enhances maintainability because your support, you can be your own support. You can create, you develop and you support your application. You might work in the big company and you might have a different team working with it. So whenever they will see named formula, user-defined function, they know where to go, where to do. So it increases the readability, so it quickens the time and creating the updates of the logic or changing the logic, it's much, much quicker. And that's money, that's happiness of a customer. It's just quicker. Reusability. Wow, you can define it once. Do not care whenever it's being called to life because it's when you need it. And it's all across the app. You can think how many things you can reuse. So apps works faster. And we are increasing the efficiency, right? So those are key takeaways. I've used 45 minutes of my time. So at the end, I want to say a big thank you. Thank you that so many people join us today during the Power Platform Bootcamp Saudi Arabia. My name is Chris. I'm really honored to be here with you. You got the QR code visible on the screen. So if you will have any questions, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn and I will be happy to have a conversation to answer all of your questions. If we still have time, I'm available for your questions right now. Thank you.